this is a case now whereby front end has implemented the back end. Is it right? Who should be charged guilty? Whereby when there is an issue, the response has changed, the type has changed, and you did not notify the front end about it.
Let me tell you something about these people. You see, these people, they are the most complicated beings on earth. A response is coming earlier. It came in as an array. In your benevolence, in your I'm looking for big grammar. Inside big grammar. In that big grammar, you decided to change it to an object. For what reason? That's a problem. Backend, when people start doing backend, then automatically they feel like they are hackers. And you know the mindset of an hacker, you just do your own thing. You are working in a silo. You are not communicating with them. That's how they feel. Because they are seeing green on their tapping out.
And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to make sure everybody understands that. It is not everything that backend should config you people. You people need to be thinking as found out.
Have a theory, a magical theory that lazy people do backend. You don't want to do hard work. And when you push their work to them, their actual work to them, they refuse.
But if you front-end people say that it's only data you want to be displayed, go back to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
That's why we have this separation of concerns.
Sure,
but you've now made front-end now. To be honest, the smart people that we're going now, front-end go to do DevOps.
So
that's what these people want.
So
and we will not go.
Hi, welcome to Tech Courtroom. I am the tech judge, Iro Kechi Omolola. And here with me are two developers, full stack developers, but one is going to be picking the back end and the other is going to be picking the front end. So we'll be having several tech cases where they have to defend the actual feed, back end and front end on this actual case in the courtroom, Tech Courtroom. So I'll be introducing our first developer. Is a full stack developer, but it's going to be on the back end side. So let's meet our guest.
Hi everyone. My name is Esquire Ayabami Fadin. Speaking on behalf of the plaintiff, backend engineer.
Okay.
Thank you, my love.
And
I am barrister Oluwafuraji Esquire.
oh shit.
I will be advocating for the front end team.
Okay.
Luca Continua.
Victoria not Asata.
Okay, so let's get it started. When something breaks, as a front-end person, when, most times PM just come and say something is broken, because from the PM side, they are only conversing with the front-end part, the application, and they reach out to you that something breaks. What's your first action line? Do you think it's a back-end thing instantly?
To be honest, I'll put context to it. So there's certain logic that by default, you just know that I will be praying. Is this backend?
Is them.
Customers getting double credit, for instance, on a transaction.
Is
backend. Am I the one that's supposed to do the security check on the API? Am I the one who's supposed to ensure our balances are equal? What you're getting is what you're receiving. I'm not doing that. People don't understand that the core of front end is to display data. Backend handles the logic. So
I mean, I, as much as you want to make a point, I still disagree. Every problem will start from the front end, because I've seen cases where front end is calling the same API twice. What will you now say in that regard?
I put it to you that the average front end developer has the basic logic of when you trigger a button, there's a disable tag that you're supposed to put there. The average front end developer will put it. But you see our back end people, they would never take into account such scenarios.
Wait a bit. Same scenario that you've given it. Okay, you're getting double credits. And let's be very fact. I've seen it because I click on one button. Very simple. The button is already loading, calling the API. You are saying that basic developers would put disable. But I put it to you, not all of them would do it. Because by the time you click that button the second time, another transaction has started loading. Even while the first one is initially loading. So that problem now is front-end. I'm sorry to say.
I put it to you that problem, this specific case, is actually backend.
How?
Let me tell you why.
Okay.
You as a backend developer, you know that you are handling logic. The idea is that a customer is not supposed to get double credit. So the ideal thing for you to do is put transaction at least in a queue.
Sure.
And you're checking. So how am I the one that go and put transaction your key.
See, that is understandable, but the initial check still needs to be the initial check. Do you understand? I can agree that okay, fine, things are supposed to be.
We've
okay,
agreed.
but not. Wait, no. Calm down. Hold it, my lord. Hold it like this. As I was saying, yes, things might be in the queue, but you need to also explain to me why a front-end engineer will not do simple checks. Do you understand? If you click a button once, disable the button. If you put input once you load the disable it.
I agree with you. Same thing. My agreement is coming from the part of this. I think the basic thing one of the basic things they teach you when you are doing your backend tutorial is that never trust users' input. Why did you trust my input? Why did you assume?
Calm down.
I put it to you, my lord, that this guy,
My lord, if I may, my lord.
my lord, he may not. My lord, let's close it up. This movement,
Please, it's already a backend thing. Okay.
I put it to you.
So, do you think backend devs communicate poorly?
Before,
Not true. Not true.
who else?
Because there are cases whereby we've seen that, the APIs are ready and you just give it to the front end. There is no let's sync. This and this and this this is what you need.
So, I believe that the quality of any good developer, not just even backend or the quality of any good developer should be able to see some things and understand certain things, especially if they are written purely. If I give you a Postman collection, to a degree, I expect you to understand it. The only problem you might have with the Postman collection, for instance, is I call the API with this kind of requests I gave you, they returned this error. And now it becomes a problem for me. Just that. But if I give you Postman collection, you're still asking me for this. Who has the time for that? I mean, I agree that yes, there are certain times when I need to sync and maybe you see the request and it's not matching your design. And I say, why am I sending this to you? Why not send this to you? We can talk, we can reshape the request.
Does that mean that when backends are actually doing their tasks?
Let me even comment
Okay.
to that. Front-end engineers are magicians to a certain degree. But I think their magic does not include understanding Postman collection by default.
Hmm.
The magic ends at animations, right? And defining colors. It doesn't translate into. So the essence of the syncing that you're doing with a front-end engineer is to understand the sequence of logic you've implemented. You just give me Postman collection of add to cart. No. How am I supposed to know that before you add to cart, there's a token you're supposed to get?
Wait. Let's be very frank. Maybe the Postman collections you have been collecting are not Postman collections.
Maybe the Postman collection was not a collection in the first time.
That's the point.
Because I've seen cases whereby front-end devs get to collect documentation and they still don't.
Understand?
So
I'm not a
the
magician.
interesting thing for me,
I'm an example, I'm not a magician.
obviously, issue. But the interesting thing for me is that, to a degree, especially if I'm using tools like Swagger, do you understand? For Swagger, for instance, you can provide context on each of your APIs. You can write a summary. You can explain this is supposed to do. Then list your endpoints. Give a sample request. Give a sample response. The only time I believe anybody should have a problem with that is there's a tendency to copy and paste if you're Russian. So the request might not be requested. That one is understandable. You get. But I mean, if I provided sample payload, wait now is my flow. I'm still holding to it. If I've given you sample payload, you understand? I've given you sample response. You can even have an idea of how you're going to structure front ends. You can mock the response you're getting from me and even build your stuff even without me completing my stuff. That's just by the way.
My lord.
But
Ask these people.
yeah.
Ask these people that cause problem for we people. That how many times did they actually document all of this process?
A lot of times.
I put it to you.
Because I know that documentation is a big problem for back.
See, documentation generally is a big process of developers.
Once the wire to post
to say that.
once the wire of database MongoDB, auto,
I
they don't want to write anything.
I don't agree with that. That's because you've been working with backend people.
It is
As much as I have been working with some front-end people.
I put to you that the average front-end developer would most likely, even the seniors, will still want context. That is why mature companies like the Spotifys of this world, the whatever, that to bring out documentation, they have a lot of documents, a lot of details. That's why companies even employ technical writers, because they know that backend people.
They help them write the.
I put it to you, that is because of backend people that we have a role for technical writer.
Because I don't now understand it. The requirement is now becoming a lot. Because who did you hire? A writer or a backend engineer? But my point still remains that, see, as a front end person, you see, to be very factual, the only thing you need, you have summary, you have requests, you have response. You call the request, you give it the response. What else do you want from me? Because to me, I feel that if we have to now sync over every single endpoint, then it means I'm not doing my job properly.
Okay. No. We're not syncing over.
I mean,
But there's always this.
no, I get the context of you understand. If it's something complicated, yes, definitely. If the need to sync is, yes, there should be. But I should be able to give you collection, and as a full-fledged, as my opponent is saying, that as an average front-end engineer, you should be able to read collection.
You mentioned something while you were conversing. You said that except if the request it doesn't tally with the UI that the front end developer. And that's where I'm going to ask you a question. In that case, do you design your request based off your own or based off UI?
Okay, so speaking on behalf of one of the best backend engineers that I know, which is myself, I design based off of design. I have now faced another problem, however, which we will not bring to this court case today, because sometimes some designers used to file Nabarashoku. We're gonna leave that aside, because why will I check design on the 21st of January 2025 and I design my APIs according to that, and by the 25th of January, design have changed. And in that situation, and they say it's backend and it's not say the backend did not see design. There needs to be a conversation. Okay, how will you design? So I believe that even there's change management. Do you understand? There should be. If anything happens and there are changes, you let everybody involved know. And I think that problem happens because a lot of designers, and when they now do that change, it's only front end with it. Because apparently we backend will not have sense.
You had him. Backends don't have sense.
I'm saying that that's the impression, but you people are giving because you believe we don't design according to the design. Tautology. But you get the point.
Okay, so in this case, right?
Mm.
This is a case now whereby front end has implemented the back end. Is it right? Who should be charged guilty? Whereby when there is an issue, the response has changed, the type has changed, and you did not notify the front end about it.
Let me tell you something about these people. You see, these people, they are the most complicated beings on earth. The response is coming earlier. It came in as an array. In your benevolence, in your I'm looking for big grammar, inside big grammar. In that big grammar, you decided to change it to an object. For what reason?
Like when did it change? Because we get front end have these issues a lot.
That's a problem.
And you will not communicate it because the documentation will also not even change that.
Let me tell you something. When people start doing backend, then automatically they feel like they are hackers. And you know the mindset of an hacker, you just do your own thing. You are working in a silo. You are not communicating with them. That's how they feel.
Sure.
Because they are seeing green on their terminal.
Objection, my lord. So if I may, I understand the pain from my opponents. You understand? Because a lot of times we backend people we assume a lot of things. And one thing you should know is that if there are any changes to the request or response, it is because of optimization.
But
I will take this fault that sometimes, please quote me again. Sometimes there might be communication gaps
all the time,
but a lot of time, I will say that communication is not either back end or front end. It's a person thing. If you refuse to communicate, that's a you problem. It's not a back end problem. Do you understand? Because if the response changed from an array to an object, there is probably a very good reason why you did it.
And there's a space for you to open your mouth and say,
it's funny whereby a front-end developer now is trying to debug and find out that the response type is no longer what is.
It's not the response type I'm telling you. What about API URL that will just change for no reason? For not just reason. or you implement caching and you implement
calm down. API URL is DevOps. What are we saying? What are we saying? Yeah. What are we saying? But no. See, I've understood that a lot of times, those kind of changes happen because of a lot of things, different reasons. For instance, recently, I've had to rebuild a lot of systems to account for volume. Do you understand? And for some reason, there are some data structures that are better than other data structures when you're like mapping through.
with this point of mine, my lord, send him to jail.
Wait now. I'm still cooking. Let me cook.
My lord, it's not cooking. Send him to jail.
Let this egusi finish. Let it done. So in that kind of situation, when you account for that and you use a different data structure, there is already a fathomable reason why you did it. But I would agree that in the nonsenseness of the person, not the backend developer, but the person, but you refuse to communicate. Do you understand? Then it becomes a problem. The same way I'll put it to you that sometimes when your front end want to make some certain changes also. For instance, you are saying that in this form, you want to add an extra field and you want to use this extra. You did not tell backend and you give extra field. Now, wait now. You now send it to backend. You now load this. You now say that the information is not being saved. And you say, but backend is supposed to know about this thing. Do you get my point? The idea of trying to sell you is that it is a communication problem. And the communication problem is not a backend or a front end.
It is easy for us. It is a backend problem. Let me tell you why it is a backend problem. I'm adding a new field to this form. Backend. We are all looking at the same feedback design. PM communicated this. You cannot tell me. Say no see.
Wait.
But in your stubbornness.
No, I disagree. The reason I disagree is because, to be very honest and fair,
You people don't check design.
it's not like we don't check.
They don't check UI.
You don't check it.
I
You don't check it.
I do not agree.
PM.
What I would say is that
Designer.
the duration of checking design for me, use myself as an example, of course, is that I have seen the design, I have grasped it.
So you should also go back to check.
They know.
So this is problem. Do you understand? That's exactly the same communication problem we're talking about. Because I would designer change something and you not deem it fit to tell me that I changed something.
So bottom line.
Who has the
Designer
problem?
problem.
Right? It is a communication person problem.
Okay, we'll leave that for jury of listeners to.
It is backend.
It is everybody.
We also had this case whereby we know that front end can do a lot of implementation and functionality.
Magician.
But on the long run, we always have this feel of front end is supposed to do lesser tweak. It should always be like showcasing data from backend. And this actual case is the case is on the back whereby the filter. The backend has provided API to show the entire full data. And now, because the filter is by a name, the backend is expecting the front end. You can also do your filter implementation. Why not do it from your end? When front end is expecting backend to give me a filter API, and backend is saying it's something you can do from front end.
As I said earlier,
No.
they assume that we are magicians.
Before
We have the power of God in our hands. So they assume that we can do all things. In the case of
Because I've seen cases, not just filter, but I've also seen cases whereby it's an implementation. We know that front end can do implementation.
yes, we can.
But they just want to whereby just do it. They don't want to do it from their backend. They want front end to always do those cases.
Another reason, I have a theory, a magical theory, that lazy people do backend. You don't want to do hard work. And when you push their work to them, their actual work to them, they refuse.
They tell you, but you do it.
Who are we going to blame? Let me tell you why front end will most likely tell backend to go implement something. Because we are customer obsessed, customer centric, and we want to ensure that this thing, the implementation backend will do, is much more robust than what the front end will do. Let's take, for instance, you're running a filter and you have a couple of fields, a paginated API, for instance, and you're supposed to run
Filter
on 10 data. On 10 data. Pity, if I like pity this boy.
So
If I like pity,
there are two things that my opponent said that they should rethink. Number one, no backend person will give you paginated data that does not have filter already. Let's be honest.
Are we sure?
Let's be honest.
That's the
Backend,
case.
front end people, drop it in the comment.
That's,
it.
that's the honest truth. But I have seen situations where they give you all the data once. And do you know why
They
that?
tell you to paginate from your
16,000 data.
Wait now. Do you know why that?
App
Wait.
crash.
Do you know why that happens? In some particular places where this is the only time it should be accepted, when the data is not a lot. And what you're trying to avoid is that you're trying to avoid an API call every time you need to load 10 or 5 or 6. If you already have all the data, for instance, you are showing a list of 36 states in Nigeria. That's not going to change anytime soon. Sure. So you can load everything at once. But somebody just wants to pick states in that starts with letter A. There is no need to now still make another API call to say, give me all the states that start with letter A. In that kind of scenario, my lord, is it not better for front end to do the thing from there?
Hey boys,
No, because no, you have to explain.
Because there are cases
A violent situation.
Okay, so now you're saying that this case is based off context. There are cases whereby
My argument would always remain that there are certain data definitely that has to be paginated. Definitely. When it's crossing a particular threshold, it has to be paginated. Because even when you're fetching the data from a backend perspective, you're pulling a lot of data and it's just not wise. You understand? But there are certain things that you don't. For instance, there are some things that I don't even expect front end to be calling backend for. Do you understand? Some things that
give instance.
I've used states already. Let me try to use another.
even these states,
Wait.
even these states come.
Why will you be pulling
What if-
states
what
from the
if-
backend?
Because tomorrow PM might say, we are not based in Nigeria anymore. We are based in Canada.
And you go
Fetch me data.
and you actually put the data of
Give me my data from the
I don't
backend.
understand. The reason why I'm saying this thing is very
I think he's making points.
The reason why I'm saying this is because, see, let's be frank.
Because on the long run, why can't he be the ones?
So why I'm saying these things. Now we are saying these things from a perspective of, okay, I'm fetching data for 36 days. Now imagine that your application is being used by 5 million people. Are we? 5 million people are making one API request each to fetch state and capital. Something that can easily be stored as a front end. Now, this is the implication if you store it on the front end and if you do it on the back end. If those 5 million people decide that is once in every 6 minutes, they want to be calling that API. Do you know how much APIs we are calling for that? Wait, do you know how much API we are calling for that period in time? Do 5 million times, 6 times, whatever amount of time.
Objection, my lord.
It is expensive. Wait. It is expensive because now you're making that amount of API calls for something that can easily be stored on the front end. Meanwhile, if you store it on the front end, what are you doing? You're not making any API call. You are just fetching from a list that is safe somewhere.
Objection.
And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to make sure everybody understands that it is not everything that backend should spoon feed you people. You people need to be thinking as founders, not as developers. Before I pass this stage, I don't understand.
This is my opponent. The opponent is forgetting the concept of caching. What happened to caching? Cache your data. If it is frequently requested, it means that you don't have to trust.
Are you hearing this, man? Do you know what catch is? I just started my startup with I started my startup with myself and my lord. What are you saying?
Boys,
Do you know what premise is?
hey, my lord.
When we get applications that the performance of the application is really slow, who should we blame?
Backend.
Front end.
Backend.
Because I mean,
Not
if
backend.
it's ever going to be a backend problem, then front end should catch it first, which means that the blame is still going to them.
If an application is not functioning properly, if it is a performance related issue, how many milliseconds does it take to load the React page? How many milliseconds? But you know how many seconds it will take to fetch some API from some people's API? To fetch data from some people's API? 3 hours. Okay, 3 hours is a long shot. But 2 seconds.
Number one.
2 seconds is a lot.
My opponent has fallacized himself with this point, with this regard.
But basically,
Because which kind of API are you fetching for 3 hours?
but the concept is but the concept
What?
is, if it is performance, I'm an advocate of, yes, there are a lot of things front end can actually do. We now have our front end caching, can cache it down front end and stuff like that. You can even store some very not so security not so sensitive data on the storage.
My lord,
Can do that.
Sorry to take you aback. But everything my opponent is just saying now was the same thing I said in the last argument. But for some reason now, he is using that same point to now bring the no other kind to
I'm
say.
saying that, but I'm saying that when you think of front end, let's go back to what front end is supposed to do. Display data. handle logic and performance. That's why we have this separation of concerns.
Sure,
But you've now made front end now. To be honest, the smart people that we go in now, front end go to do DevOps.
So
That's what these people want.
so
And we will not go green.
and let's now be very honest. I'm really sorry to say this, but if you front end people say that it's only data you want to be displayed, go back to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. What are you using Redux for? What are you storing states? And this is is it something that you're crying about? No.
Yeah. Semester because one.
Take these things into consideration. I mean, I don't understand.
No.
Seriously, any small thing. Backend this, backend that, backend this.
You go say front end just requirements now. Because of us people, they are telling us to be doing them now.
As fulfilling. See, it meant for us to fulfill this front-end developer.
If that is what will make the application work, scalable and beautiful.
No, see,
fulfill.
scalability. Thank you for saying beautiful. Scalability has always been a backend problem. No problem. We will handle that. But that beautiful thing, come and say it again, please. What do you mean by beautiful?
Animations.
It's me that will do animation for you.
We are not saying do it. We are saying our job is already hard enough.
That's what you are doing.
Let us rest. Don't need another pit.
Who said you?
Designer and PM.
Do you think backend developers understand the user experience?
Never. In the history of backend, no backend developer has ever understood the pain.
And if they don't understand user experience, does that mean it affects their work because they are not thinking from that user?
Again. I think that the basis of these arguments has been because maybe they are talking to backend engineers that don't actually look at a lot of these things. Again, I'll use myself as an example. Being one of the best backend engineers that I know. For instance, I go through the design. I think, okay, the user is supposed to fill in this form, maybe supposed to click on this thing. God will bless some designers that do prototyping and they do it very well.
Shout out to a couple of them.
God bless you. Yes, sir. And the ones that do the prototype and do
I also see God will do the keyword for you.
I refuse to. I'm a minister now. I cannot be saying something. So you understand. But do better. So the idea is going to be you have prototype it. I've opened it, I've clicked it, I've said, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. I will mirror my request and response like that. And let's be honest, a lot of this pain my opponent is feeling. I have to say, who are the backend engineers you have been working with?
No.
That's the problem. Let me land, my brother.
Okay, land.
So my point is this. Anybody that says a backend engineer doesn't really understand user experience is forgetting one important thing, that the backend engineer is also a user.
Okay, let me put it to you. Think of the following. Think of the following and tell me what comes to mind. India, their food, dance, right?
Not really.
Think of Ghana, jollof.
Ghana jollof.
Think of Nigeria, Afrobeats.
Okay.
Think of backend, lack of knowledge of user experience. This is because we have a huge number of them that have represented that culture of I don't care about the user's feelings. I don't care about the user's emotions. Them project management, them project manager, them front end and UI UX. This design I've seen is what I'll just work with, and boom, they move on. So they don't understand.
Then again,
they don't understand the pain point of a user trying to log in, and the API is malfunctioning. They don't understand let's be serious now. I'm even thinking about it from the context of a company. The average.
Even their error messages.
Oh, you will see.
No.
That one.
No.
We have to separate conversation.
No.
That one. It's not even podcast we do for that. 9 Bs.
No.
Now, from perspective of a company, you don't understand the pain point of that company having your what's it called now? At the login stage. It costs companies a lot of users. And who is the problem? These people.
So this is now what I'm going to say in response to that. What is the problem with the login exactly?
Most likely, authentication issues.
What's the
The authentication, probably your authentication token is not working. They are giving us expired tokens. They are giving us probably first.
We just get these.
What we are just doing is taking what to give us.
Now, very good. Have you also considered the factor that maybe frontend did not allow users to be able to view their passwords? I've seen a lot of login pages like that I'm an old man. If I type in a password, it can be your
Instances. Hold on, please. Instances where you find out.
Even instances of
two instances where you find out. Number one, for security reasons. Most fintech platforms, most or some, let me say, would not allow users to view password because somebody can be looking over your phone. It's for security reasons. So you can't blame that on front end. Sometimes it is a product requirement too that product manager say we no want show you the password
Also,
for some certain reasons. Am I supposed to?
wait. Now let me now catch you there. It's very simple. I understand that it can be a product requirement. Do you understand? But one thing I'm going to tell you for a fact is that, see, in that particular area, there is nothing a backend person can do if you send me a wrong password. True.
Or what if backend API is failing?
Wait.
What if the API is failing?
And I'm now putting to you how many backend APIs used to fail as login?
Eh?
Yes.
I put it to you.
I put it to you back.
I put it to you. The API.
In the comment section,
I put it to you back. I'm very logging people and that.
issues.
Hey.
So we get that.
One thing I'm saying now is that I can understand, okay, maybe fintechs have a password sensitivity issue because it's money and stuff. Yeah? But I have I say I have a betting app.
Which
No, but I have a book platform where I put books and I let people read online and all those nonsense. I mean, I don't exactly need to security. I don't need the kind of security that you people are clamoring for. Because I mean, backup, you should know your password, whether you like it or not. But that one, I just Google suggested password for me. I put it in, I use it, Abby. And maybe I now cram the password. There are some simple things. User accessibility. Thank you. Accessibility is what I'm looking for. That a lot of front-end people don't come with that. A lot of I don't want to put designer into it.
it is actually a design problem.
No.
For user accessibility.
No.
So I put it to you that
Hello.
a standard organization would have a UI UX researcher. They would have someone who takes into account people with color blindness, people with certain, in quotes, disabilities, right? And that influences the design. What you need to understand is front end will not perform magic. We are supposed to see the UI UX, turn it into code, usable code, responsive code, fast code, not perform magic for people to authenticate your API.
Yeah, thank you, my opponent. Thank you for saying that. And you said you're proper company. But let's now be very realistic. How many proper companies do you?
A couple.
That have user researchers.
Yes.
A couple.
That's a lie.
A couple.
In our Nigerian,
My lord.
Nigerian base system.
Okay. But the onus is not on the front end. That's what I'm saying.
If not because we do not call the name of the Lord God in vain, something should happen to right. Because I don't know if you know that. No,
But it's not a front end problem.
let's be very factual. A lot of this onus comes to the front end because there's not a lot of the structure set up in a lot of companies. To be very fair.
But you find UI UX.
But there's something I know about front end here that they don't work. They work based on what people give them. You are giving front end, they show. Design, you've given front end. It is the
No, the thing now purpose a front end that takes his work seriously. Do you know, like a lot of times in the length of this conversation, we've had times where we've said, okay, communication, this communication, that you don't agree with this, you don't agree with that. You know, you make your comments on this, you make your comments on that. You know my comment. So, for instance, I am an old man. UI UX, I said that they are not putting password. I to click and see and view my password. But me as a front end developer, I say, okay, these people that are using this app is a dating app for old people. They need to know the app.
That's the outcome. See, bottom line is user accessibility.
My point
Is it the back end of front end? Knowledge. You guys don't take into account, you don't consider. The vast majority of you do not.
Order. In one word, if you want to give backend advice based off the pain and all that, as you know, all that you feel that they could do better, what will your advice be?
My first question will be, how many days can I use to populate this advice? We would dive for it.
Oh my god.
But the core of it is this.
Okay.
Be considerate. I think that's the core of it. Be considerate. Understand that the person you are sending this data to is not a magician. I still emphasize on that. And be open to communication. Learn to understand that when you give people APIs, there's an obligation, there's a gentleman's obligation in your head to be able to educate them about what you've given to them so that they can understand, number one, the flow of what you've done. Number two, it would also help them to, in quotes, spot errors quickly. Look at edge cases you might not even have considered in your API. That's mad. I can give more, like if you have us.
No. Thank you. Backend, what's your advice for front-end developers?
Thank you, my lord. Putting aside the over dramaticness of my opponents, I will go straight to the point. I think the first thing I would say is that let's be very factual. A lot of times, backend engineers are not usually carried along with design design meetings. A lot of those meetings happen between front-end designer and the KDM. And it's because they feel that, oh, it's back-end, what does it have to offer? Which is very unfair. Do you understand? Because a lot of times, for people that are really good at what they do, this is what forms their basis of development. For me, like I said, programming is 70% designing the system, 30% coding. So if I've designed a system for what this is supposed to look like based off of your design, and that changes and I am not informed, not only is it going to drag me back, just that, but it's going to drag back the entire team. That is when some dramatic front-end people like Uncle Fumbi here now carry their two left chests and say, no, back-end it's just because a lot of times, and I see it a lot in a lot of companies, back-end people are not usually carried
along.
Why? Is it my fault? Am I PM?
just because it begs to a question you asked that whether we are user friendly. I mean, what's the question?
User accessibility.
No, not
Yeah,
user
user experience.
whether we understand user experience. Because you see, I use apps. You understand? I mean, I want to bring back my idea for the dating app for old. They are very lonely. They need it's going to be a startup idea eventually, but you get my point. But I mean, in those kind of things now, I have grandpas, I have grandmas. I've seen them in their loneliness. I can decide to use this.
Okay.
Design.
So, yes, this is the end of our tech courtroom between the developers, that's the front end and the back end. And I leave it to you, our jury of listeners, to drop in the comment section who is guilty.
Front end.
You know, there are cases whereby, as a developer, you know, front end developers drop your pain on how back end developers, you know, change responses, do a lot of things that affect your work in the comment section, and the back end to communicate on how the front end have also, you know, affected you in a way when you're delivering your work. We just need to know in the comment section, back end developers and front end developers, what's your take on these cases and how you feel the other developers could do better just to improve work. And because the main goal is both of us doing work together to enable the product to scale, right? We are doing it for the users. So tell us in the comment section how you feel we can do it better and the lapses of developers that you've worked with and how they can do better. Thank you so much. We've come to the end of our Tech Courtroom. I'm always your tech judge, Hiro Nkechi Omolola. Do well to like, share to other techies, and repost. Bye.